Welcome to Let's Get Real about Work-Life Balance. This is a session that's really a panel that I feel is near and dear to my heart, and there's lots we can talk about like where this panel came from. But you'll find over the years this topic has come up at DrupalCon, and it probably has come up in your life as well. We're all very passionate about what we do for a living, and I think that tends to find its way into our work and into our life, and those two things impact each other. So there's a lot to talk about here. So welcome to our session. As Donna said and Carlos said at the beginning, or a little bit before the beginning, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So definitely say hi in chat, ask questions in chat, and one of our panelists will probably see it. And let's just go ahead and get started. There are links in the chat to two different straw polls. We're going to talk about them in a few minutes, so go ahead and get your votes in early. Hello, everyone. Just seeing chat kind of blowing up there. Let's go ahead and introduce our panel real quickly. I am Josh Miller. This picture is of me on a 1.5 week vacation. It was February. I actually went on a cruise, and it was probably one of the last cruises that was available because when we got back, it was whatever month comes after February, March. And it was late February that I went on a cruise, and then I came back, and then the pandemic happened, and it's still happening. I used to work 70 hours a week. I've broken it down to about 40-hour weeks. I actually work 4.5 day weeks. I don't do a full 5 days in a week anymore. I just work extra hours in the other days. Couldn't be happier. I've been with Acromedia since 2016. I have an amazing wife and a very angry cat that I'm very glad isn't here meowing at us right now. Leslie?
Hi, I'm Leslie Lynn. I'm a Drupal project manager. I do site building training and a lot of volunteering. I left the job about 9 years ago and became a Drupal freelancer. I didn't know anybody in the community, so the community is great. Thanks to everybody that's helped me out along the way. I'm currently working with Redfin Solutions up in Portland, Maine. I've been up there for about 4 years. I am also a board member on the Drupal Association. And I actually started working from home back in 1985. I was remoting on a 300 baud modem into a mainframe. So I have a lot of remote work experience.
That's amazing, Leslie. And I think just that experience is going to be really interesting to kind of dive into in our discussion today. How about you, Carlos? Are we missing Carlos? Carlos, you're muted. You're muted.
Better. I don't know why I'm muted, but I'm a technical account manager, Carlos Espina. In Acquia since 2015. I'm so original that I stole George's idea. So that's one of my pictures in a vacations that we decided to take one day when my son was off, and we went to the Grand Canyon. We drove from Houston, Texas, and I think it's relevant because we actually kind of work. My wife and me were both remote, so we kept working as we are driving. We took turns in working or stopping or shifting around our calls and time, but we enjoyed it and we produced results.
That's awesome, Carlos. Donna.
Hi, I'm Donna. I'm a client lead over at Canopy Studios, and I am really passionate about project management and content strategy and accessibility and all these wonderful things that make digital a little more human. I'm really just interested in the people behind it. And I'm really excited to talk about this with you all. Of course, also, I am a mom and a wife and a friend and a this and a that and a what have you. And so it's a lot to juggle. And though I have very poor hand-eye coordination, so I'm not going to say I'm a juggler, I'm kind of a juggler. So there you go.
I kind of wish I could juggle too. I think of myself more as like a plate spinner, keeping all those plates moving all at the same time. Let's go ahead and dive in. If you guys haven't had a chance, go ahead and participate in the two straw polls. The links were at the very top of the chat, so you have to scroll up to the very top. We have this first one here. What is the hardest part about balancing work and life? Interesting, staying focused on work while I should be working is currently taking the lead. And that's pretty impressive. It is almost half and half here. Finding time for myself outside of work is also challenging. So staying focused and getting away from work is hard. Managing expectations with family or work, also a challenge. And it looks like finding time for family is pretty low on the list. I would find myself in that category. Any thoughts from the panel on what these results look like? Is this what you expected?
I think it is, yeah. It is interesting.
Representative. The first two I would expect.
I think staying focused at work is actually hard, particularly now. The other straw poll is the remote work survey, and I was really interested about this because I feel like this kind of tells us about who's in our audience. A little bit later, we'll tell you all how long we've been remoting, except for Leslie. She's already let that one slip. The top one is I've only started working remotely. So I think that's interesting, guys, because there's going to be a lot of tips in here that you can use right off the bat that should be able to help you.
And Josh, if we can pop in just to mention what Paul said here in the chat, is I think what you're feeling is what a lot of us are feeling right now, that especially where a lot of you, if you do have a family at home, especially right now in COVID, where you have everything at once, there's just not enough of you left. So hopefully you'll get something out of that. But I just wanted to call that out, as that's something near and dear to me and to a lot of us. And I have countless conversations about it. So I just wanted to grab that before it got lost in the shuffle.
I think that's great. And Ray, your point about family distracting you from working while you're actually supposed to be working, something we were going to talk a little bit about too. So let's get to it. How do you relate? And this is a really important question about working remotely. Working in general, but remotely seems to really intensify this. Are you, did I miss something, Donna? Is there a slide that got hidden maybe?
No, it's just got renamed.
Okay. Okay. It wasn't the dog and squirrel slide. Okay, just making sure.
Your head's
ahead. I'm ahead of it. Okay, cool. So working remotely, Carlos, let's talk just a little bit about work to get us started. Yeah. You work remotely, have an 18-year-old. What are some pros or benefits of working remotely?
Yeah, well, as we have there, I think one of the biggest pros is like the clothing, very flexible, and that allows you to be comfortable. Sometimes it's jumping a quick. Another one is, you can spend time with your family and your pets and everybody that's in the house, and never forget that.
Leslie, you also mentioned to me you enjoy working remotely. What is it you like so much about it?
Well, I think I like, and a lot of people right now are enjoying the fact that they have more time in their lives because they're not traveling as much. So that hour or whatever it is for the commute every day, both ways, that gives you a little more time to then figure out, how to balance that between your work and your life, but you have more time to do that. And then the second thing is you have more flexibility in your schedule. And that's something I've enjoyed because I've been working at home since my children were born. And it allowed me to be present in their lives, a bit more than I would if I was working full-time in an office. So I think those two things, flexibility being the key there to working remotely.
Yeah, flexibility is pretty awesome. And Donna, you've been a little bit quiet here. Anything to add that makes remote working awesome?
Yeah, honestly, for me, it's a little bit of the ability to kind of control my work environment a bit, COVID standing, to be able to segment my life in such a way that I can do all the things I want to do for everybody and still not necessarily, I can manage what usually comes at me. So that way I can focus on all the things that count.
Yeah, having that control in the midst of a time period where we feel like we don't have a lot of control can really, I don't know, it's a salve a little bit, and that makes a big difference. The funny thing is a lot of what makes remote work awesome could also be considered kind of negative. Wearing PJs can kind of help me feel unfocused somehow, and eating lunch with others just frankly takes longer than eating lunch by myself. And the flexibility and everything can kind of mess up the cadence of work that I used to have when I was in the office. And I did used to work in an office. I worked in an office for about 8 years, went in every morning and left every evening. And tell you what, I got a lot of work done when I was in the office. And that flexibility can really steal time away. And the zero time for commutes sometimes doesn't give me time to react or to switch gears from being at work and being at home. So there can be lots of risks. Leslie, you had a good point about some in-person interactions. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that.
So, one of the risks of working remotely is not being present, not being there with all your coworkers. I think it was Sarah in the chat mentioned, not being there for lunches. So that is one thing. There are things you can do, like, we have at Redfin a Wednesday lunch that we still have online. But that's one thing you miss is the in-person. And also one thing I really miss is learning, the learning that I do by overhearing conversations with coworkers in the office. Even though I'm technically remote and I work a lot remote, I do try and go in the office, at least before COVID, several times a week, just because of this reason. I feel like, I benefit a lot by overhearing conversations. You can do that through Slack, but you're not necessarily there to hear conversations about, technical things or client issues that you would miss if you weren't in the office.
Yeah, I at least at Acro we do a lot of training of junior developers and co-op students and interns, and that has gotten exponentially harder since we're all remote at this point, because everybody working quietly at their desk away from everybody else, and that can be a real challenge. Donna, surely you never find yourself working after hours, right?
Never. No, I'm one of those guilty people who say, all right, guys, I'll be right there. I have to just finish this one more thing. 3 hours later.
Yeah.
So one of the ways I counter that is that I tend to just be like, okay, this is my hard line. This is what I need to achieve. Anything else is gravy. But if nothing is really on fire, or I'm trying to take the mental discipline to just step back from it. And to say something about what you were saying about division of time and space is, honestly, if I'm making dinner, that is my commute. Let me just make dinner and manage how much my family knows to manage how much they expect from me for that 10 or 15 minutes, especially if I'm angrily chopping a salad. I might be a little, so it's just a matter of creating that self-discipline, but that's hard sometimes because you want everybody to be happy. We're an entire industry and community of people pleasers.
And Josh,
yeah, it's both. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
Perils.
I wanted to add for everybody, and coming in the presentation, we have some comments on tips and tools and cons and pros, and this balance is a very I don't know how to say it, narrow. So all the cons and pros can go either way. So just be aware of that. The same time, the same way you can say, hey, I'm gonna go do this very quick and stay 3 hours working. You can say, hey, I'm gonna listen to my kid for a second, and then realize you watch a whole show or watch a movie with him. So that balance is, I think the key word is balance, and keep that in mind.
It's totally balanced. I also relate to the angry salad chopping, and it's funny because I don't really know that I'm bringing those emotions back into my home environment, which is also where I work. And sometimes the other way around, it's not totally idyllic every time you're in a relationship with somebody. And so there's times where things get emotional or stressful, and that bleeds into work. It's a hard balance. It really is. To transition a little bit here, we had one more poll. I did this about 2 weeks ago on Twitter. We had 33 votes, so less than what our straw polls are getting. But I asked almost a similar question to one of our straw polls, which was, what do you have the hardest thing to do in a normal work day? Finding time for others, finding downtime, staying focused on work. And then I said yes. I actually learned more about writing polls on this poll than I think what this data is telling me. I learned, number one, culturally speaking, the word downtime doesn't necessarily translate. I had a number of people at work who are not necessarily in North America ask me what downtime meant. And that's the phrase I use when I say when I'm not at work and I'm not necessarily with family, I'm just me time. And the yes was funny to me, which means you're just answering yes to all three of these, but it was also hard to translate. But what we're seeing here, though, is two things that are very divergent, right? We have entertainment, the downtime aspect, and work, which is not entertaining necessarily. And the entertainment is messing with our work time, and our work time is messing with our entertainment time. And how do you separate those two things? To me, that's what I'm seeing in this poll. And I don't know. I would have answered yes to this if I was answering that poll. To help kind of understand the rest of our questions for our panel, we actually have Donna put this in here. I thought this was great. Are you distractible? This was the puppy and squirrel that I mentioned earlier. Are you distractible, a dog, if you struggle with staying on task? Or are you hyper-focused, the squirrel looking for the nut, regardless of anything else, if you struggle with working too much? Personally, I'm hyper-focused. I think our panel has a mix, a pretty healthy mix. So the pitfalls to look out for. Donna, I don't know. Can you tell us a little bit about the perils of work downtime?
Actually, this is the distractible one. I think Carlos might be able to.
Yeah.
That one.
Go for it, Carlos.
So for everybody, I'm kind of the distractible type. I really love life. So if I get distracted with my son, I really get distracted. If I get distracted with my wife, who is really hyper focused when she's working, she will scream at me. Not scream, but just tell me like, I'm working. But anyway, balance in juggling stuff is very important. We have more on this in coming, but don't fear taking too much time for your family. It's part of it. At the end of the day, you're doing this for them, not for the company really, or for whoever you're working. So give yourself permission to leave, give yourself time to do that. And we will talk a little bit more about stuff for this later. So, go.
Absolutely. Donna, you were talking a little bit about like the juggling and working from the sofa, and that could be a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a slippery slope. Sometimes I've got to tell you, if it's a rainy, cozy day and it's chilly, especially in February, if it's an internal meeting, my people are used to seeing this of, I don't even put the virtual background on. It's like, guys, I'm exhausted. It's freezing, and I'm covered in dogs right now, and so I'm sitting there under the warm laptop and the warm dogs. But that, especially if my husband's traveling, after the kids are in bed, let me do that one more thing, and then I'm sitting there under that and whatever. And I am one who I have a very difficult time taking those mental breaks, because even my physical break to get away, my mind is still processing. And that's personally my challenge. I find that it just takes a matter of setting a hard line. And when I am doing something that I definitely want a mental break from work, I do something that I have to focus on. It's not TV, it's either reading, it's cooking, it's something I have to pay attention to break myself out of that. Otherwise, it's like when I mentioned in an earlier slide, my bio slide, I love to cook and I love to bake. It's because I need that tangible in this virtual existence we have. I need a tangible piece of that. So I kind
Totally.
of spoke.
We have a question on what is our opinion about multitasking.
Try not to do it, because I'm pretty sure multitasking is a lie. If you're not focused, then you're not focused.
I want to get Leslie's point of view, because as a PM, I don't know if I agree with you.
Yeah. I often have several client things happen at the same time. You work on one, another client emergency may pop up, and then you have another thing come in. So I do juggle a lot of things. It is difficult, and as Josh correctly said, it's hard to give your full devoted focus to one, which you really should do, but you're trying to, in your head, prioritize these things as they're coming in. And the same with managing projects. How do you get all these things done at the same time? So it is a balance. It is a struggle. But yeah, Josh is correct.
Well, and something that it wasn't a PM. It was the software director at Acro told me once to, and it's such a simple piece of advice for people that are distractible or feel like they're being distracted. Instead of saying yes all the time, immediately trying to fulfill whatever it is you just promised, say yes, but schedule it like 3 or 4 days out. Say, yeah, I can do that by Wednesday. And then that immediately takes this distraction, whatever it was, either it's work or home-based or both, and it sets an expectation that's way more manageable, particularly if you put it in your calendar, which is, I think, something we're going to talk a little bit more about too, using your calendar. But saying yes isn't necessarily bad, as long as you set a reasonable expectation for yourself so that you can focus on whatever it is you just agreed to do.
Yeah. And I wanted to add what Greg said, task hopping. That's also a tool in a way, because you can do it. I mean, if you're not giving yourself permission to go to your daughter's presentation, I know in COVID times that doesn't happen as much, but if you're not given permission because you have to respond this email, you can use task hopping. You have a cell phone, you can go, you can drive, think about it during the drive. That's still work. And get over there, take 1 minute, respond to the email. You cannot pay attention to both things, but you can task hop and use it as a tool to, take time for family and work at the same time.
Yeah, and for those of us that are hyper-focused, Leslie, I hear you have an easy time saying no.
I do not have an easy time saying no. It's something I need to work hard on. I've been trying to work on it for a lot of years, but it is difficult, especially in this world of the COVID, with everybody working at home. There's a lot of new opportunities out there, both for volunteers, for camps, for cons, and I feel like people do a lot of work on those things, and I find it very hard to not attend everything because somebody spent a lot of time creating this camp or this sprint or something. But for the first time in my life, I'm really starting to feel burnout and feel like I just can't go to everything all the time and help out all the time with everything. So saying no is hard. It's also hard the other way. Disappointing your family by saying no when they say, can you drive your sister to the doctor's appointment while I have this really important call with a client at the same time? So I struggle both ways with saying no. It's something I really need to work harder on.
Well, it's interesting because you accept the premise that you should say no. And then now you're just kind of talking about where or why we should try to do that. Why do you think it's important that we say no? What benefit do we get if we protect our time?
Well, in my case, it's more time for the life part of the work-life balance. I tend to say yes more on the professional side and at the expense of the personal side, and that's something that I think I need to balance better. I think a lot of other people probably do as well.
Totally. Yeah. And it's probably critical to not overpromise. Underpromise and overdeliver. That was nailed into me right out of college, and I still struggle with that myself. I am also hyper-focused, as I mentioned. I have a lot that I could say on the topic, but I'm pretty sure, Donna, you have some thoughts about how to prioritize life over work or how to avoid some of these hyper-focused pitfalls?
Yeah, one of the things, frankly, a couple of things. First of all, I saw in the chat the time blocking, and yes, I'm a huge fan of using a calendar. I have a personal home calendar that I share with my husband, and we occasionally invite other people to events on. We have my professional calendar, and I personally just keep them synced. It's this time, and I'll mark on the professional one, I am unavailable, AFK, at certain times. And I just make sure I honor that calendar, and I make sure I break that out. And another thought is, frankly, celebrate a little bit when you say no. Honestly, Leslie asked me to do something for this week for her. And not only did I say, I'm so sorry, I have to say no, I'm booked. I actually we have a brag channel out at Canopy where we can just kind of celebrate our own little wins. And I'm like, hey guys, I said no. And I was so proud of me. So really, it's a different presentation. I talk about forgiving yourself. Forgive yourself for not being able to do everything. If you tend to be that compulsive feeling type of I must produce, I must be awesome, I must do great things, forgive yourself, because you're never gonna have 100% of everything all the time. So just let it go. It's okay. Especially right now. Frankly, there's some days we're gonna fail to get it all done. It's happened.
Yeah.
A week and a half ago, I was actually in tears. I'm like, there's no way. And then somebody's like, of course there's no way. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm human. Shoot. And I just kind of refocused and reprioritized and got a different perspective.
Oh, wow.
But you have to just forgive yourself for not achieving everything in your mind that you want on a given time.
I love that. I think it's so important to really focus like that. Which is coming from a hyper-focused individual saying that, right? We have a quote here from Dolly Parton. Never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. And this comes, we're going to switch gears a little bit here. We're going to talk a little bit more about our, some, obviously we've been talking about tips this whole time, but some things that we find that are working a little bit better. And our first focus is going to be on prioritizing and how you do that. So we're still on the distractible, whether you're a dog or a squirrel concept here. But Carlos, you keep hammering this in that you want life over work.
Yeah.
Any tips on people that are distractible?
Yes. For me, the problem is that I have always dedicated the time to my son, to my family, and it's very important. So I get very distracted from my family. So calendars, events, reminders, to-do lists, that's very big for me because it reminds me, okay, so from 9 to 10, sorry, I'm out. This is important. I have to work on that. If I have to do a special task, I kind of put it in my calendar so I remember I'm going to be busy at the time, stuff like that. Liam was mentioning headphones, and I think, headphones with good noise canceling is pretty good, especially nowadays. Your family's in the same train than they weren't expecting to be home all the time. So families' schedules and that help everybody, like they know where you're busy and when you need to do something. Task switching is not so good, but you can use it to be there. And one that I had is I tend to be more result or objective oriented. It's not how much time do you put into what you're doing. What is important is you get that task accomplished, whether it's helping a customer, whether it's giving a result, creating a document. But I think that is more important than the amount of time you dedicate. Hey, if you're so good and you did it in 5 minutes, go take time with your family.
Right. And this kind of leads me to the other side of the challenge. If you're going hyper focused, and Leslie, kind of going back to you, and there's some of these balance when it comes to prioritizing is not about like which one is better, right? It's about walking down the middle of a road, right? And avoiding those two ditches. Sometimes, work has a demanding deadline. Other times, if you miss dinner, that demanding deadline means you miss dinner with someone you care deeply about. You're going to be breaking those expectations. Leslie, how do you handle that kind of situation?
Yeah, I think communication is the key to success on both sides. I think if you let your family know that you have, an issue that's, you have to take care of a client and you're going to be late for dinner or you're not going to make it to, a meeting or whatever, that goes over a lot better than having somebody keep looking at you saying, hey, can you come now? Can you come now? Can you come now? And the same with work. If you're going to go out for a short walk or you're going to go have a quick lunch break, let them know in Slack. Let them know that you're going to step away for a few minutes so they're not spending time looking for you. So I think communication is definitely the key.
Yeah, I like communication too. It's funny because I think communication works both ways. If you tell work what's going on in life, that can kind of pave the way for some extra time off if you need it, or some, understanding if you're late to something that's maybe not that important. But the other way around too, if you're letting people know that you need some overtime this week to make things work at work, that communication can also make things a little bit easier at home. But one tip that I have for people who are hyper-focused like myself, I'm focused on either situation, work or home, whenever I'm actually working. And the easiest way for me to kind of flip the switch is if I'm on a Mac, I can switch the screen over completely just by swiping, and I've got a whole different browser set up for home stuff, and I've got a different browser or profile set up for work stuff. And that when I started doing that, things really started getting a little bit easier for me to really switch that gear. Like as soon as 5 o'clock hits, either I'm turning the computer off and walking away, or I'm switching the screen so that I'm not looking at notifications. I'm not seeing my email. I'm not, oh yeah, that one tab I have open an hour and a half ago, I never finished reading. I can just move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, another trick, and I also want to address something I saw in the chat. But another good trick is when I'm doing things like whether it be angrily chopping that salad, or even just winding down in front of the TV or something in the evening, kind of back in my brain processes, and I think a lot of us do this, and I'll realize, oh, I didn't send this note. Oh, I want to do that. I actually have my family laughing at me a little bit. And anyone on meetings with me can attest. Alexa goes off at random times because I'll be like, okay, Alexa, at 10 a.m. tomorrow, just remind me about this. And I do that so I could check it off in my head, and I'm not sitting there wondering, am I going to remember this tomorrow? And I'm not getting up. I'm not writing it down. I'm not picking up my phone and getting lost in an email. I'm just setting up something completely hands-free and putting that. It will be taken care of, but it's tomorrow and this is my time. And that's another trick. Also, I just want to, sorry about triggering your Alexa. Again, if I did it twice now. So, I just wanted to call out what you were saying about Matt, about trying to balance with the toddler. I did work at home when my children were very young. I know what Leslie did as well. And I do feel for you because you're trying to listen, you're trying to interact, you're trying to engage. I think this is going to come down a lot to just, we can't speak to your individual situation, certainly, but transparent communication. We're all humans. We're all in this right now. This is not easy for anybody. And I'm not, pushing down your challenges. I'm just acknowledging we're all having them, and I acknowledge yours, and I for you, but I just recommend transparent communication, because whether it be in work or in life, we all want to get through this together. We all need to help each other and lift each other up, and we all have to set a reasonable bar right now, because this is monumental, and this is something frankly historic. Yay, we're living through history. Lucky us. But it's historic. It is monumental, and I just wanted to acknowledge where you are and just know you're not alone.
Donna, it's so nice to hear that we're not alone. I feel like I need to keep hearing that too. And if you could, Donna, because we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to try to get through some questions if we have any time at the end. And just so you know, guys, I plan on sticking around for a few minutes after the session ends. If you have questions, we'll be on Slack as well. You can hit any one of us up if you have any additional questions, that kind of thing. But
look at that, Paul. Yes, that's me. I think it works in both ways. MVP your day. I mean, we use that term so much in web development. So MVP it. Okay, what do you need or want to accomplish that day? And that will give you an idea of accomplishment, even if you stepped out to do something. Again, use your calendar. I mean, being distractible is so easy not to work that day. It's so easy. So knowing what you need to accomplish, you can accomplish it. And again, if you're really good, go ahead and do it in an hour. Do it in 2 hours. At the end of the day, is results what happens. And yeah, that Ana Laura, that's my wife. Yeah, she's right.
Okay, so
invitation, and remember, you work to live, not live to work. Keep that in mind.
That's totally Carlos. You need that as a T-shirt, right? Like, get away from me. I'm living my life. Well, and then Donna, I think I heard you talking, so maybe you can take that point and move it into being hyper-focused as well.
Yeah, and this comes back a little bit what I was just saying there is about communicate. Really just schedule the time you need for you, communicate your needs to the others, acknowledge the fact, and you have to take care of yourself. I've been known to reference the whole airline attendant always telling you to put the airbag on yourself before your kid, because if you pass out, no one will take care of them. If you don't take care of you at some level, it doesn't have to be grand spa days, people. We're all really busy and we're not allowed at the spa anyway. No, I'm saying the other day, I'll be honest, I heard one of my kids up. I ran into my bedroom as a kid and I grabbed my Kindle and I read for 7 minutes. That was the self-care I needed. I needed 7 minutes in a completely fictional universe with no issues. But I needed it, so I took it. And I was hiding in the corner of my room so no one would know that I was awake yet. Not because they would have, I have an incredibly supportive family. Not that they would have wanted it, but they want to include me because they're a loving and supportive family. And I needed to not. So take something, even if it's 7 minutes, carve out something for you so you don't lose yourself. Put your air mask on.
Leslie, what do you do to keep balance after this many years working remotely? How do you find that me time?
I honestly still struggle with that even after all these years, because I am hyper-focused and I don't want to disappoint anybody, and I have a hard time saying no, which I'm working on. So I do struggle with that. I do know that we all need to take care of ourselves, because if we're not doing well, then we're not able to help others. So I think just stepping away, taking a quick walk, making sure you eat lunch, don't work until 4 or 5 o'clock and then say, oh, I forgot to eat lunch, and that's not healthy for you. So yeah, as Donna said, taking care of yourself, making sure you're there. You then can be there for others on both sides.
Awesome. So we're coming up on 6 minutes left. Guys, we're almost through all these slides, and then we'll be able to have more conversation with the chat. Kids at home, man. I don't have kids. I've got an angry cat that I can shut out of my office, and life moves on. So Donna, I believe you have some kids, and some of these tips are yours. So take it away. What do we do if we have kids?
It's just trying to get them engaged, trying to keep them a little bit social as much as we can. Though it kind of lost its luster a little bit. Things like Facebook Messenger for kids or other tools, have them talking to someone other than you. I don't know if you're comfortable or your situation allows for it, but we did a driveway visit with their grandparents where, our kids were sitting on the back of the truck, probably about almost 10 feet away from the grandparents hanging out in lawn chairs. But they got to visit, they got to communicate. Having them have that connection outside of you, and setting time for that when you can, and having that independent of you when they can help. And it just is healthier for them as well. But also keep them engaged, whether or not having crafts around, having learning opportunities. There's a lot of things. San Diego Zoo, my son loves going back to the webcam. So a few times a day, he checks out the plastic cam, this cam. Make it learning, make it engaging, help them become more self-sufficient. Now, granted, my youngest is 9. For those of you with younger children, it's an entirely different set of challenges. But honestly, I found in the past grabbing my laptop and working, sitting on the floor while they played by themselves, even that physical presence, even if you weren't really mentally engaged with them, sometimes helped bridge that gap. It wasn't the most productive experience in my life, but in these times, let's take what we can get.
Yeah, totally. And Carlos, I believe this last point was your little nugget.
Growing with my kid, or my kid growing in a new country. We came 13 years ago to the United States. I discovered something. I don't know if it's the Texan culture or the whole United States. I believe it's the whole United States. But you want to keep everybody busy. And now you see it on people that is, what do I do now? Like sometimes he will come to me and say, I'm bored, Daddy. Like, you have toys. Figure it out. If not, sucks to be you. Sorry. And it's okay for them. They need to learn how to figure it out. So it's also an important tool for their life, because sometimes facing work, they need to figure out, my boss didn't tell me what to do. I need to figure something out.
So that brings us to the last slide, which I don't think we're going to have a lot of time to go through, but this again was also a Carlos, follow through on your promises. That
if you said you're going to take time for them, 30 minutes, take the time, take the 30 minutes. They will not bug you when you're busy. If they know, if you said they're going to have an hour, they will get an hour.
Absolutely. And Leslie, communicate your schedule. Is that something really effective?
Oh, absolutely. Both with your family and with work. Let everybody know at the beginning of each day, this is what I expect the day to be like. And I think that just helps. Might not always end up that way, but at least setting a framework, I think, helps on both sides.
Yeah. And that something my wife always wishes I did more was, can't you just tell me when you have a meeting? I should just give her my calendar. That brings us to the last bit where we all have one big thing to say. If you learn nothing else out of this, is the too long didn't read portion. For me, I've been remote since 2012. I would say basically my highest values throughout this whole crazy thing called life has always been my wife and my faith in Jesus. And I never seem to have time for my wife, and I never seem to have time for my church. And what was that about? And it turns out I was believing the excuse that I was working to support my family, or I was at least giving into that excuse. And so I was working and working and working and not working and not spending time with my family, and not spending time with my church. And the trick that I've learned is basically work less so you can make more memories. If you value time with your family, then take time off and take the financial hit, because the memories are worth the value of your time. And that's my biggest takeaway. Leslie?
Yep. My biggest takeaway is that work is super important, but so are your family and friends. And the other thing is, be kind to everybody you interact with, because everybody is struggling in some way with this work-life balance, especially nowadays. So just be kind, be understanding, and be thoughtful of everybody that you interact with.
Carlos?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to be fast. So you're doing this for your family. That's the reason you're working. So keep that in mind. No important milestones on both sides, work and family, and try to do your best to meet them. Communication is key. Remember that when you work on your phone, when you are working, thinking about a customer, you're working, even if you're traveling. And back to that picture, the main thing about that picture is we were working, and I know my son, my wife, and me will not remember how good of a project I finished during that trip, but that we hiked the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, totally.
So
Donna?
keep that in mind.
And essentially set yourself up for success. I don't like feeling that I didn't accomplish something in a day. So on some level, and it doesn't have to be written down unless that helps you, but some level kind of have a checklist in your head of, if I get through this, I have succeeded today. I might not have gotten everything I wanted done, but for me, if I got this deliverable out the door, these 3 clients happy, I got to have dinner with my family and read with my son at night. Boom, I'm done. I'm good. Everything else is gravy.
That's
reasonable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Setting a goal that you can actually reach, right?
Feel like you won the day.
Yeah. So let's start talking. Let's keep this conversation going. It doesn't have to be in our session. It doesn't have to be just with the people that are on this panel, but spread the news that you can balance work and life. We do have a set of resources here. The slides I will share in the chat here at the end, but I will also post them on DrupalCon's website next to our session. I believe Leslie wrote this last slide, Own Your World. You have a community behind you. We all are in the same boat. There is a session evaluation link, which I will share again in chat. Thank you all for coming to our session. If you want to hang out for a few minutes, I'm going to stick around the panel. You guys can stick around if you can too. Any questions or thoughts? We'd love to hear them. Thank you guys so much. I'll put these resources back up.
Hey, there is another one. It's Truebill. It's also interesting for budgeting.
Truebill, I've not heard of it. YNAB is how I've been able to start working on vacations without feeling the stress.
I could not use YNAB because they didn't connect to Capital One. Capital One did a funny work with the communication.
Thanks, Nicole,
Thanks,
Paul,
everybody.
Suchi, Cameron, Gary.
You guys for coming and sitting and talking with us.
Yeah, none of you are alone. We all struggle.
We still have like 80 people. Let's keep talking. Don't worry.
Oh, I'm not saying. I'm just absolutely.
Not to you, Josh, but to the others. Just feel free to keep asking questions.
Yeah, reach out. You can message here. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever.
Great, we have Twitter.
If you need support, we're here. We're right here, and we're all feeling it right now. We really, genuinely are.
And you can celebrate with us when you ask for something and we can actually say no. Oh gosh, it's so hard. The thing, I don't. Go ahead, Leslie.
I was going to say I might not say no, but I'll try really hard to say no.
Oh,
it's a cultural thing. We think that when we say no, we insult another person, and it was so big for me. I spent a couple months in Japan, and we went to this place with a coworker who's from Malaysia, a guy, not coworker, somebody that was in the same program back 20 years ago. And we got to this little tourist town, Ryukimura, which is a historic town. And the girl was an interviewer, was making a piece on him, because we were all there and whatever. And we asked her, hey, do you want to have lunch? And she looked at us and said, okay. And thankfully, my friend, who's also Asian, kind of understood the culture better. So he looked at her and said, look, we will love for you to join us for lunch. But if you can, if you have something else to do, if you feel like you don't want to do it, you will not insult us. We will not feel offended. It is okay if you don't want to. And she said, yeah, actually, I have something to do. And I think that's the problem with no. We fear making somebody feel bad. I'm somebody that gives my phone to all my customers. I give my cell phone. And everybody's like, oh, they can call you. I joke. We're very good friends with all my customers. So I tell them, hey, you can call me after hours. May or may not be drunk. It's your risk.
It's funny you mentioned phones, Carlos. My one of the things that I like to do, particularly in a 4 or 5 day kind of time off, I will either turn my phone off completely if I feel safe, like I can do. I'm just going to be at home, or I will turn all notifications off completely. Or one thing we did on it was a, a big cabin that me and a bunch of friends rented. So it was this huge cabin, and we all decided the first night of the just great escape is what we called it. We got this big basket. We had everyone put their phones in, and the rule was only one phone out of the basket at a time. So you could have it, but it was just like this big community rule, and that really, like, we started playing games because we didn't have something to look at. We actually had conversations around a fire where people were actually looking at each other and not looking down, like it's the little things where you can focus.
Yeah.
That takes me to something. I'm sorry, Donna. Go ahead.
No, last summer, we take really good, obnoxious road trips a lot of the time in the summer. And last summer we went up, it wasn't as far. It was a little north of Ottawa. And we purposely picked a cabin that would have terrible, terrible cell signal and, very poor Wi-Fi, because it would force us to be out there. And it was one of the most joyful times because, we could have turned on a booster if there was an emergency. There was a small town near-ish. But for the most part, it was us. It was the kayaks. It was the canoes. It was each other. It was a trampoline. It was the fire. And it was just peaceful. And I can't live like that normally. I feel,
right.
My children, as I mentioned, if any of you came early, text me from the other room in the house. If I'm
That's crazy.
I have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old texting me, "Hey, Mom, can we do this?" Because they know I'm on a call. They're not going to come and hold signs up, but they know it'll pop up on my screen, and I can say yes, no, or ask your father, or please go away for right now, or find something else. But I can't live like that normally. But to take time for that kind of self-healing and detachment, we're not in the matrix, so unplug.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, now that the question popped up, and I wanted to tell something to Liam because I've been reading what you've been saying, and something came into my mind. Is very important. We just did that, what you are describing, Donna. We went to a cabin Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Didn't realize it was DrupalCon. No signal. We actually drove 25 minutes to go and be on DrupalCon because that's also important. And I think that's the message. It's not exclusive. If you're working, your family is not out. If you are with family, your work is not out. And I think the biggest struggle is that we think they have to be. If I'm working, I have to, family, stay away. I'm working, I need to be focused. Or family, I'm with family, work, notifications, stay off. You need to be away. They don't have to. So to Kevin's questions and Liam, some of your comments, I wanted to tell you that don't put your laptop away. Don't put your phone away. Yeah. If you have a notification that is important, don't turn it off. Even if you're with your family, if they will understand. The moment you make it exclusive is when they won't understand. If you are with your family watching something and you answer an email, they will be okay. If you just stop paying attention to them, now you have an issue. But that's where balance comes. But I think a good message is don't think it's exclusive, because it's all your life. It's all part of your life, work, life. Everything is one single life, and enjoy that.
And another thing to keep in mind is really about how we're setting standards for ourselves. And I'm going to talk from the mom point of view, but this is not exclusive to dads. It's just blanket thing. I know everyone feels this. All the parents feel that. But for me, like my best friend is a stay-at-home mom, and she has all this time for these amazing, beautiful, wonderful things, this summer especially. And I don't. I'm finding things for my kids to do independently and checking in with them and being there. But when my husband and I are both on calls a lot of the day, we can't be sitting there and engaged. So don't compare yourself to someone else's experience. Hers is beautiful and has challenges of its own. And I love her and I appreciate her and her strengths and the challenges she's facing and all of that, just as ours has that. And they're very different situations, and we love and respect each other's challenges and how we work with that. But I can't compare myself to that mom experience of being engaged all the time, just like she can't compare herself to me having a little bit time to talk to other adults. It's a completely different thing, and we can't compare ourselves. We can't set ourselves up for, I want to be everything to everybody all the time, because we will break. Right now, and there's lots of articles being published. Right now, there's a lot out there. Parents and COVID with kids at home for the last 5 months now. We've been home with our families while working for 5 months, trying to be everything at the same time. It's going to be hard, and you cannot compare yourself to other people's experiences and try to check off that box. You cannot compare yourself to the rules you had before this. I used to have very strict screen time rules. Let's just say they've laxed a little, and they're going to relax. It's going to happen. And you know what? This is a blip in the kids' lives, and that's okay. You know what? They're going to bounce back from this better than we are. It's okay. Don't break yourself. It's okay.
It is okay. And I wanted to at least answer Kevin's question from a little bit earlier, where he was saying, or he was taught his comment, really, I don't know that it was really a question, was he struggles getting into vacation, and then by the time he's gotten into it, it's almost over. For me, I was in the same boat, and oftentimes I get more stressed out on vacation because I need space and time to feel relaxed, and just knowing that about myself made a big difference. Because then I can make sure there's an expectation with anybody that I'm on vacation with that I'm going to need some time every day where there is nothing scheduled, it's completely unstructured, and I can just read a book or take a nap or whatever. And as long as everybody's on board with that, then it's way more relaxing for me, and I can kind of reset. Another thing that really helped me was I was spending the entire vacation worrying, okay, well, we just spent an extra $200 on food today that wasn't in the budget. That's crazy. What's going on? And I would just worry about money all the time. The thing that helped me was just, okay, we've got this lump sum and it's going to be okay because we've got that amount of money set aside already for this vacation. And that really helped me get into the spirit of it. And I think what you can take away from that, Kevin, is try to learn more about yourself and figure out what makes you tick, what you find relaxing and what you find stressful, and set yourself up to win on vacation. You know, take all those barriers away that you have control over.
I don't have small kids, but how you have handled kids and remote schooling and work?
Yeah.
Somebody asked Wender. I don't know how to say your name.
I hope I got that right. I was reading that one too. It really, I think, is going to kind of also depend on your school system and your age of your children. There we have both a middle schooler, actually about to be a high schooler, but a middle schooler and a grade schooler, a younger student. We found that to be very different experiences. My 13-year-old had actually been taking one course online already. So for him, it was a very natural progression. And frankly, he's a 13-year-old boy who'd rather just be kind of doing his own thing and playing video games and hanging out in a classroom anyway. So he's really acclimated well to it. It was a very natural progression. He had to learn and is still working on it. It was something actually we were talking about yesterday, how to use his Google Calendar to remember to show up for Zoom classes. Because once or twice he'd forget. He'd be so engrossed in the online experience that he'd forget to do the social aspect of it. But that's right in nature with his personality. Where our younger child, he was in the 3rd grade at the time. That was much more struggle for him. He's my super extrovert, team sports lover, yada, yada, yada. And we found that for him, we'd have to make sure he was set up in the morning before we started the day. We had a scheduled kind of lunch break time where we try to get him to interact. If it wasn't online with somebody, it would be, even just walking the dogs around the backyard or something physical. And then at the end of our work day, whomever, whether it be my husband or myself, whoever finished first would sit down, and we would have to go through the assignments with him because he was less engaged. So he'd sometimes miss an assignment. Not that he wasn't trying to get away with anything. It was just like, oh, who cares? This is just another online thing, whatever. And it would just kind of space out of his mind. So there's that. And another important factor we've had is we have our kids work out at least every weekday, sometimes on weekends too. We have a row machine. They have to use the row machine. They have to do a workout video. If they do want to just walk the younger dog and run in the backyard, that's fine. But physical activity has really helped them stay focused during the online experience.
For Surabi, I think we talk a little bit, but I believe communication will be the answer in calendar. Just make sure your family knows I'm in a quiet time. I'm in a call, so it's quiet time. I remember we got married in August last year, and there was a part. I mean, sometimes you have to be honest and straight. Our family came, and one day I had a call. We were doing something for the wedding. I ran upstairs, started the call, but my family and my wife's family started being too loud. I just popped my head out and like, hey guys, on a call. And that's it. So communication, don't feel bad that they're gonna feel bad. If you tell them and the communication is clear, I think that's the best way. And again, follow on your promises, Ravi. Like if you said you're gonna be on a call for an hour, or you're gonna be on this call, and after we can play this game, we can do this, we can have lunch. Make sure as soon as the call is done, you stand up and go and do whatever you promised to do.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like I'm very happy and lucky to have an office where I can just close the doors, and if the doors are closed, that's just I'm working and I can't be talked about. Usually, though, I will close the doors and tell my wife that and Carlos is like, I'm in the same room that everybody else is in. If
and
you have the opportunity,
floor is open to the third floor. So
yeah. But I would wager, Carlos, you told your whole family that you were going to be on a pretty important call right now, and that's
you have seen my wife popping downstairs, so she doesn't.
Right. But that communication helps set an expectation too. Like they're not going to expect you to respond if they have some sort of emergency.
And in truth, there's other ways doing it too. Most people who have ever worked with me, and a few of my clients have caught on too, because they laugh at me. If I go on mute and start having my hand over my face, it usually means I'm on a call. Can you please be quiet? Just go in the other room, please. And
that mute button's amazing.
and it's not that I'm not trying, but they know that boundary, and occasionally they need that reminder, or they're just getting really excited in the next room and you can start hearing it a little bit. It's not a matter of good and bad or even a boundary at that point. It's just a matter of consideration, and it's just going to help them as adults too. So again, as Carlos is saying, don't be afraid to have to say no to them, as long as later on they feel empowered enough that you're going to say no to someone else for them.
Right. And just, as you said earlier, just be present for them. As much as I work, I made it to every single one of my daughter who played field hockey in college. I made it to every one of her games except for one throughout her 4-year college career. I didn't make it to a lot of other things. I wasn't around for meals necessarily. I was working, but I was able to schedule my work around. So and she's a lot older now, out of college, but she still remembers that I was there for every one of her games. I left work to do that for her. So something like that is something, your family, your children will remember forever. They're not going to remember as somebody said, the project that you worked on. They're going to remember, and you're going to remember what you did to help your family out.
Yeah, create those memories. Work less. Yeah.
And
Leslie, you made me think of two things. One is something that may not be too popular. I love my company. It's a fantastic company. I've loved every company that I've worked for. But if I'm not in Ackerby in a TAM, somebody will be. Nobody else is going to be a parent to my kid. That's one. Or a husband to your wife, or a wife to your husband, whatever. Just keep that in mind. And also, when I was talking about that trip to the Grand Canyon, for me, one very important as a parent is I want to teach my kid. We live in a world when we are working, when we are so busy. I want him to understand that what matters is when you look back and you remember what did we do that day. It's not I work or I was a good kid or I get a good grade. It's like we freaking went to the Grand Canyon out of the blue. Woo! And that is way better at the end in life. When you are old and you probably are retired and you're thinking back and like, what did I do? I went to the Grand Canyon. That's awesome. I did it. You're not going to remember, oh, I saved this project.
I kind of want to respond to the fear aspect that you, Sarabi, right? I hope I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with names if I said it wrong. Oh, good. Yes. That afraid you'll forget to reply to something important if you don't do it right then. And I get that. I completely get that. I am that border collie personality of need to take care of it, need to do it now. At some point, you're going to have to this comes back to that whole forgiving yourself thing. Acknowledge the fact that maybe it won't happen. And maybe you're going to have a hard time later, but you're doing your best and you need to stop. Sometimes you need to just stop and you have to put that fear aside and trust yourself that you're going to get to it and that you're going to do a good job of it. But, trust yourself. And if something happens, forgive yourself for being human. And if it's something that you're really, 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 something's coming, that's a different thing. Or you have something big and important. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, frankly, blow it off. I am saying, however, if it's that constant nagging kind of feeling that, oh gosh, if I don't check this 3 more times, something might happen. Something always might happen. And the beautiful truth of at least I know where I'm at. Even if something really unfortunate happens, I don't work where anybody's going to die because I did this wrong. Okay? There's a priority level. There's a level set with yourself of, as much as this feels monumental to you, where does it fit into a bigger picture? And that kind of takes a little bit of the weight off your shoulders. And again, I'm not saying it's not important. I have amazing clients and they're all genuinely really important to me. I'm just not going to be able to serve them well if I'm exhausted from being a prairie dog popping up, checking my email at 10 o'clock at night. I'm just not going to be a very, very effective human at that point. So trust.
Yeah. And I think Donna, what you're saying too is, give yourself permission, lower your expectations on yourself, right? Like, just if you're constantly worried about, not being there, that's what Carlos said too. Somebody else is going to be there. And honestly, if something does happen, there's a particular workday period that most people are there for. Leslie was talking about not being available 24/7. There's a particular amount of space where you're expected to work, and then there's a particular amount of space where you're expected not to work. And I have that conversation with junior developers all the time, trying to, and senior developers too, trying to press upon them the need to take care of yourself, because you as a person are frankly more important than a project or a client.
Yeah, a long time ago, I had this boss that will call me every day after 6:30 p.m. to Robbie. So what I did is he called me one day and I looked at the phone. I said, okay, we're going to finish this right now. So I answered the phone. Oh my God, what's going on? What's happening? Is everything okay? Are the servers up? What's going on? Are we losing money? Like, no, Carlos, I just had a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that it's after work? So I thought it was really, really urgent. So just learn to measure when it's something really important. Think about it. Somebody going to die? Is the company going to disappear if you don't respond to that notification? Maybe not. Maybe it can wait till tomorrow.
Something about the whole human aspect. Digital is about people, whether we're talking about our end users as website development teams, or if we're talking about our development teams and each other. Website's about people. It's about people who work in it too. It has to work for you so that way you can live your life. You're not you're not going to be perfect, especially not now. And you're going to be okay with this. And you just have to trust. It's that trust fall exercise. You have to trust that if you communicate to your teams what you need, and you communicate to your families what you need and set those expectations, you're going to be okay. It may not look the same, but you know what? 6 months ago, none of us thought we'd be looking at life right now the way we are either. Everything can switch on a dime, and it's okay. And it's okay to be afraid or scared or angry or frustrated. It's okay to have all those feelings. We don't have to be perky about it. It's okay, but just keep doing your best. And keep reaching out and keep asking these questions.
Realized I was muted. Thank you guys so much for all of your questions. I think we're going to call it there. Seriously, this has been a wonderful panel. Thank you to Carlos and Leslie and Donna. You guys have been, you're the reason this panel worked out so well. For all the various, I don't think I'll ever get a chance to say. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
See y'all later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, and reach out if you want to keep talking.
Yes.
Bye.
Yep.
All right.
We're
Bye.
around. Check us out.
Bye-bye.